Our final reading comes from Matthew's Gospel as we continue to explore the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' first public act of ministry according to the Gospel writer Matthew. Hear these words of life. You are the salt of the earth. How many of you like salt? Potato chips, fries. Salt is delicious, isn't it? But if the salt loses its saltiness, food would be gross. How could it become salty again? It'd be good for nothing except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light in a city on top of a hill. People don't put a lamp under a basket. That would be the point. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand, and it shines on all the walls around the house. The same way that your light shines before people, so that they can see the good things you do, not the good things you say you do, the good things you actually do. Praise your Father who is in heaven. Don't even begin to think that I have come to do away with the law and the prophets. I have not come to do away with them, but to fulfill them. I say to you very seriously that as long as heaven and earth exist, neither the smallest letter nor even the smallest stroke will be erased from the law, until everything there becomes reality. Therefore, whoever ignores one of the least of these commands and teaches others to do the same will be called the lowest in the kingdom of heaven. Mind you, this might be in the kingdom. But whoever keeps these commands and teaches people to keep them will be called great. I say to you that unless your righteousness is greater than the righteousness of the legal experts and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Word of God. Mighty and everlasting Father, we watch the Spirit on us, we gather here, the word read. May it transform us. May we might transform others. Christ our Lord. Amen. I am excited to hear your stories. Norma's already shared one, so I'm ready to start letting y'all share your embarrassment. Princess? Straight me. You want to share your story? Oh, wow. That's terrible. I'll forgive you this time. Who remembers what the assignment was? Share with me your assignment. Allison wasn't here, so she doesn't know. Neither was Audrey. They need to know what the assignment was. John wasn't even here. What was the assignment? Three people. Write their names down. See them. Oh, man. Margie, you got your 3 people. Henry, you got your 3 people. Bruce, you got your 3 people. How many of you were a little bit anxious because I threatened you last week? Anybody anxious? Bruce, you were a little anxious? Did you do your homework because you were scared of being called out in front? No. Did anybody think to do this because they were worried that I might, point my finger and say, Nancy, tell me your 3 people? Anybody do it just because of anxiety and fear of being humiliated? Henry did it because of fear of being humiliated. Oh, excellent. No fear. The surprise is that I had no intention of humiliating you. I just had every intention of stressing you to thinking that you were going to be humiliated so that you would actually go and do this. And what's interesting about stress is that it's an environmental factor. So stress comes from the outside.
I told you that you had to do this or I was going to humiliate you. And Butch, very forthcoming, said that he didn't even do it. If he had never said that, nobody would have ever known. But because I threatened you and stressed you, y'all were very forthcoming. Many of you are shaking your heads that you have your names. You're waving your little paper around. How many of you only got one name? Yeah, that was me. How many of you got 2 names? How many of you got way more than 3 names? Good. But see, the thing about stress is that it can be an external factor that begins to become an internal part of who we are. It begins to affect us biologically, and it turns in our gut. Was anybody's gut turning when they went up to approach somebody to talk to them? Did anybody just have a total fear response when they're like, all right, that's the person, and I'm going to go talk to them, and it was just like, You had that experience, Jay? Never. Oh, you're an extrovert. Yeah. Some of us are introverts, and we see people and we freak out. Did anybody have like a freak out moment before they were about to talk to somebody? Nobody? Nobody was scared? You had a freak out moment? Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Did anybody start to talk to somebody and then not do it? You had that prick on your conscience, and then that was it. You just kind of said, maybe not this one. Nobody? Does anybody want to share one of your stories? Well, I encourage you to share them with one another later, because I think that they can be transformative. I wanted to tell you about how I failed in my own assignment. I went to, actually first I succeeded. I went to the 5th Sunday night singing, and I want to tell you 2 stories of how I failed, actually. The first was back in December. Did we have the Christmas Eve service here or Brown Summit? Brown Summit. So it was Christmas Day, or something like that. No, I think it was Christmas Eve. I think Christmas Eve I came here first to get something. I don't remember what it was, but on my way over here, y'all know at 29 and 150 where the new stoplight is, there's a little flower arrangement out there, and a car had pulled over, and a young boy and a woman were out there. And this prick on my conscience said, Drew, stop, pull over. What if this boy, this is his father who's sitting here on the side of the road, and what if
this is their first Christmas without him? What if? And I was struck by this, and I kind of swerved off to the road, and then, but I gotta get to church. So I kept going. Sunday night, I met Mary. That's my name on my card. Mary is the mother of the man who died, and so this is what we do as humans. We say, oh. She said he was on a motorcycle, and I was like, I bet he was flying, because when I drive motorcycles, I am flying. That's why I'm not allowed to have one anymore. She said, I had an aneurysm. I was in the emergency transport, the whatever that thing's called, ambulance. He was riding his motorcycle behind the ambulance, not speeding. When somebody blew through that stop sign and hit him, killed him. He had just taken legal custody of his son within the last 2 years, who depended on him greatly. I said, Mary, I am so sorry. On Christmas Eve, God told me to pull over, and I did. And she started crying, and I started crying. But then I said, can I take your son out, or your grandson out somewhere? Can we just go to a baseball game or something? Since there's a big baseball game tonight. Can we just go somewhere? She's like, that would be so wonderful. And we talked for probably 25 minutes that night. I was like, man, if only I had listened the first time, this experience would have been even more holy. So then Monday, I needed some gas, and I pulled over to Sheetz, and this guy came up to me, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Sheetz is and this part of High Point is just, I get hit up every time I'm there, just about. And he's showing me, he brings up these flashlights. First thing he says is, I got these flashlights. This one's 5,300 lumens, and this one's 2,300 lumens. And I'm like, who
who cares how many lumens they are? He's like, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, hey, I need some gas. And I was like, no. That's like my go-to response is no, because I don't know what could happen. Like, I've done a lot of study and research in generosity and charity, and I struggle with charity. I think that generosity is a virtue that God calls us to, but charity might be the antithesis of generosity. And I said no. So the guy goes up to the next person, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just did it. I just didn't see this person. Like, here I am telling y'all to go out and see people, right? And all I saw was this person who's probably trying to run some scheme on me. And so when it comes time for us to begin seeing others, it's very easy to fail. What we need to understand, hopefully, is that failure is a necessary part of life. How many of you have ever failed at something? Good. And failure can lead to feelings of embarrassment or shame, but in Christian community, we're invited to think of failure differently, as an opportunity. In science and technology, and if you're an innovator or designer, failure is just written into your DNA. You try something and it doesn't work, so you try it again, and you try it differently, and you keep changing and modifying. But for some of us, we thought, I tried talking to that person once. As a church, we tried to do that, and it didn't work, so we're not ever going to do it again. We have this language, this narrative built into us that failure is this awful, terrible thing, and we ought to avoid it at all costs. We might go talk to somebody and try to listen to, hey, tell me about your story. No. All right. Well, you are mean and unchristian and blah, blah. But failure is built into what we do. Some of us may even have experiences of failure when it comes to our spouse. I have such an experience where I tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed, and 7 months later I was still trying and failing, right, Aubrey? Yeah. Sometimes perseverance works for the good. If we didn't learn how to fail, we might not learn. And so this stress, I intentionally put stress on you, hoping that you would go out and try to speak to somebody, and that it would be a little bit uncomfortable. Was anybody at the very least uncomfortable when they started doing this, when they spoke to somebody? Yeah, a little bit? I know that Sarah was, right? Yeah, I was. It gets uncomfortable. If you're an extrovert, it's fine. It gives you life, and it's so wonderful. If you're an introvert, it's like the worst thing in the world to have to go and talk to somebody you don't know. But stress brings about change. See, actually, all of us have probably had stressful situations. You had financial situations that were stressful, and it caused you to change the way you thought about your finances. You had a traumatic experience, maybe a health experience, and it caused you to change the way. Maybe if you got diagnosed with diabetes, you probably changed and stopped eating that way and stopped doing these things. If you got told that you have a heart condition, you probably changed some things that you did. You started exercising. See, these traumatic things, these external factors actually cause us to become something different, to become something better. And my hope is that the church does this always. That as we begin to take our measuring sticks, that we don't think of this measuring stick, and sometimes innovation happens at the edges, right? Sometimes you just have to make your own measuring stick because you leave yours at the other church. And for those of you who didn't get one, I'll bring you one next week. But you can take a sheet of paper, it's 11.5 inches, right? Cut it into 3 pieces, and you basically got 3 feet. Tape them together. Just for like that. This is not a 3-foot measuring tape that says, I'm going to change you. That's not what we're doing here as Christians. Christ never asked us to go out and fix people or tell them that they were wrong. Actually, this is about me. What is my relationship to God? And what is my relationship to my neighbor? So the emphasis today is that this begins with me. If I want to change my 3-foot sphere of influence, I have to start right here at my left hand, which is my belly button, me. Am I willing to change? Have you ever gotten into a political conversation where you were just sure and certain that you were going to fix somebody's political beliefs and you were going to tell them how to change and they were going to come out thinking just the way you did and they didn't? And y'all just ended up mad at each other, right? Because that's how politics is. Because our goal in that is to change the other person. Same with religion. Sometimes we go in and we say, wait, you believe that, but no, you need to believe this. I'm going to whip you with my 3-foot change meter. Right? I'm going to change you. Drew told me that I could just take out this 3-foot thing and I could change you. No. It's not about fixing other people and slapping them with a little switch. Because it begins with me. Today, I'm going to ask you to take this one principle into the week ahead. As you go from the 6-inch mark to the 12-inch mark on your meter, I want you to pay particular attention to how somebody else might be able to change you. You can begin with maybe how somebody in the past did change you. Somebody unexpected. It's easy, for us to think of parents and cousins and whatever and preachers who've changed us. But it might be a little bit harder to think of somebody unexpected, a stranger who you had a brief conversation with who changed you. So this week is not about how can I change my 3-foot sphere of influence, but how my 3-foot sphere of influence might change me. How I might have been lifted up by somebody else striking up that conversation this week. How I might have looked into the world and needed somebody else's 3-foot sphere of influence. The emphasis for me is that we need to be changing and innovating at all times to look more and more like Christ. And when Christ looked out into the world, I tend to think that he didn't say, all right, you're broken, so I'm going to fix you this way, and you're broken, I'm going to fix you this way. He looked out into the world and he said, you're beautiful and good, and I created you that way, and I'm going to bring out the good aspects in you. We see this in Mark's Gospel when he's talking to a rich young ruler, and he says, what does it take to get into the kingdom of heaven? This is one of the most popular questions Jesus has asked. And he says, the scripture says this one fascinating thing that I never forget. He says, he looked on the young man with love. So they had a little banter back and forth, and he says, Jesus looked upon him with love and said, give up half or everything that you have and follow me. The man said, I can't do it, and walked away. Jesus could have looked at him and said, oh, you're just a rich man. I'm not even going to give you the offer. I know you're going to refuse it anyways because I'm Jesus and I know everything. But instead, Jesus looks upon this man with love because he knows the man's potential, and I don't think that he's giving up on him by giving him this invitation. The man may go home, and a few weeks later, his conscience might be pricked again and again. So I think that when we go out into the world and we begin to do this thing, whatever we're calling it, that we have to ask ourselves, is it a problem of seeing, of what we see? Like when I saw that man coming up to me with the flashlights, I saw a ruse. I saw he was somehow trying to get money out of me, and he was going to tell me whatever it took. That's what I saw. The problem was that I wasn't able to see him for whatever I thought he was trying to do. So we need to work on not what we see, but how we see. Our problem as humans is not what we see. We all see the same things. Our problem is how we see them. We come in with our assumptions and our preconceived notions and ideas, and we say, this has happened to me before, and I'm going to see you the same way that I saw all these other people. You're just trying to take my money, and I'm not going to give it to you. Our problem of seeing is not what we see. It's how we see. And so, as we work on ourselves this week, I invite you to pay attention to how you see others as well. So pay attention to how others might influence you, and pay attention to how you see others. When you start to see another as something different or inordinate or whatever, it might be best to stop and say, I love this phrase, I wonder. That's what happened to me on Christmas Eve. I wonder if that boy is sitting at his father's death site. And it almost caused me to stop and pull over. I could have said, I wonder if that boy's dad was drunk and it was his fault. But when we start to look empathetically and we change the way in which we see, it's not what we see, but how we see, we can start to say, I wonder if that person's been abused, or I wonder if that person needs someone to just smile at them right now. I wonder if I really could change them, and they really could change me. I wonder if I'm actually not the one who needs this person. That's what a lot of times we think, oh, they need me. That person's sad and downtrodden, and they need me. I wonder if I actually need them. If we can point that finger back on me, the Isaiah scripture was talking about finger pointing. What if I can point that finger back on me? Some of you don't like your be finger pointed at. I wonder if I can be changed by this person. And so briefly, when we come to the table of Christ, we don't come to this table in the expectation that God will fix everyone else. We come to this table in the expectation that God is working in my heart and my life. So when we go to change the world, it's about me, in relationship with you. But I'm not better than you. We all take from the same loaf of bread and the same cup of wine. We all look to the same Christ and Savior. And I hope that this week, as you go out,
or two people who you started to make an assumption about and had to ask yourself, maybe my assumption is wrong. Maybe I'm the one that needs to change when I look at them. Bring those back in.
Guess what? I'm not going to embarrass you. You can take the stress and anxiety off, but I do expect you to complete your assignments as we go from here.